Good day, everyone. I am John Michael Aquino, and I am the first reporter in Edlm 808, Leadership and Management in Curriculum and Instruction. So I am very lucky to be the first reporter in our class. And to continue, the reference of this report is came from Instructional Leadership and Leadership for Learning in Schools, Understanding Theories of Leading, edited by Tony Townsend. The first part of my report is about changing understandings of school leadership, and here are very important information that need to consider. Here's another information about changing understandings of school leadership. This is a brief overview, provide a short analysis of just some of ways that education, although it may have the same underlying purpose globally, has very different approaches locally to actually fulfilling that purpose. One area that has changed over the 3 decades that have passed since many of the changes described briefly were introduced, as well as nature and responsibility of school leadership. There are also three major shifts have occurred in school leadership as follows. These changing understandings of school leadership were brought about in part during the 1980s when a number of leadership terminologies entered in educational conversations. This included transformational leadership, shared leadership, or distributed leadership. Many other terms have emerged as well as a moral leadership, teacher leadership, servant leadership, and so on. Instructional leadership emerged in the early 1980s and was researched and conceptualized by Hallinger and Murphy in the year 1985. The authors proposed three main dimensions defining the school mission, managing the educational program, and promoting a positive school learning climate. To continue, the chapters of this book are collected into a number of parts. The first part of the book, which is my report, contains chapters by David Nang Po Seong and John MacBeath that provide us with the theoretical underpinnings of the two leadership theories that are focus of the book, instructional leadership and leadership for learning. We can get a better understanding of the history and theoretical basis of the two approaches to school leadership based on the content given in the book. Here's the part one, the theoretical approaches to leading schools. So now we will discuss about the instructional leadership by David Nang Po Seong. In the 1970s, there are studies investigated factors contributing to high achieving schools in the United States. Suggested six hallmarks of effective schools: strong administrative leadership, high expectations for all students, orderly environment conducive to teaching and learning, academic emphasis, flexible resource mobilization to better teaching and learning activities, and also a frequent monitoring of student progress. These claims highlight the importance of a good balance between effective management and instructional leadership of school leaders. And here are some framework in the different research studies. First, we have a framework of instructional leadership by Hallinger and Murphy. Next, we have Far West Love Instructional Management Model. We also have adaptation of the Far West Love Instructional Management Model. We also have five notable descriptions of principals as effective instructional leaders as follows. We also have other models such as transformational leadership, distributed leadership, shared leadership, and teacher leadership. The next part is evolving assumptions of instructional leadership. Principal leadership to distributed or shared instructional leadership. First, we have principal instructional leadership, and here are some example or important information about principal instructional leadership. The second one is a distributed shared instructional leadership. And here are also important information about distributed and shared instructional leadership. Here are another important information about distributed or shared instructional leadership. In summary, it was suggested that research on instructional leadership can further move forward to take distributed perspectives into consideration instead of solely focusing on studying principal instructional leadership practices. To enable this, in the following sections, the three dimensions considered to be central to instructional leadership in Western literature, the vision, managing teaching and learning, and also establishing a conducive learning environment, are considered from Asian context. So to conclude this chapter, we have reviewed that instructional leadership from its inception to current adaptations in different contexts. In particular, the discussion on the evolution from heroic individual and simple cause and effect to one of team or distributed leadership and complexity has highlighted two key points. First, instructional leadership is still relevant in improving schools and student learning, albeit with the need for adaptation and modification of the original models. So second, there are constraints in the use of current universally adapted social science methodologies and analytical tools for researching instructional leadership in context in different cultures and within the dynamic complexity of schools. So this chapter proposes to add diversity to instructional leadership research, thus ensuring that its scholarly evolution continues. Complexity research methodologies proposed are not merely alternative or novel ways of examining the problems or issues encountered. They bring with them their constructing disciplinary roots where the types of research questions that can be raised are now made possible by adapting similar concepts from different disciplines. To proceed, we have Leadership for Learning by John MacBeath. Instructional leadership and leadership for learning, it had been argued are synonymous, a simple matter of terminology, but words have a latent power. So leadership for learning is free of ambiguity or misconception. After all, it contains not only two big ideas, but also a highly continuous connecting proposition. So what is it for? Its very ambiguity opens the door to a deeper exploration of the contested connections between the two forms of activity. And that is the connection between the leadership and learning, the proposition for. We also have five key principles in leadership for learning. So we have shared in leadership, maintaining a focus on learning, sustaining a learning dialogue, creating an environment for learning, and also we have reframing accountability. That's all. This is my report in EDLM 808, Leadership and Management in Curriculum and Instruction. So I am John Michael Aquino. Thank you for listening.